Welcome to Life and Laughs in the Jungle Room with your hosts, Jaime Kay and Johnny Sanchez.
We have been spending a lot of time.
I get it. Too much John. Well, guess what? You don't get any John. Except if you have another John in your social orbit. I mean, it is quite the common name.
Here they are, Jaime and Johnny.
Welcome to Life and Laughs in the Jungle Room. I'm Johnny Sanchez along with Miss Jaime Kay. What's up, Jaime?
Not much. I'm a little tired because you're not going to believe this. I have been waiting on someone for like an hour to do this. Isn't that crazy how this always happens?
Who you been waiting? I don't have a clue who that could be. We don't have time to talk about it anyway. Let's move on. Hey, we had a great show last week. Still getting tons of comments and emails about the Priscilla Presley interview, which was a lot of fun. And as well as Dr. Bill, apparently your new best friend.
You know what? Dr. Bill is starting to become way more popular than you, which is not really saying a lot for him, but he is. I've been getting a lot of emails and messages about him. And I think that he is going to be a great asset to the show.
Hey, I was thinking, cool slang words that people say today. What are some of them that, like maybe your kids say? Like we hear cringy, cringy. Some of, yeah. What are
so
some
my son
of,
Jacob actually says cringy a lot about me, which makes me sad. What is a good slang word? Oh, so yeah, bra. My daughter says, Eda Marie says bra a lot. She also says G. Like this morning, I got a text message saying, "Good morning, G."
And dude, like girls
dude.
call other girls dude. Like dude.
I say dude a lot.
I've heard you say dude to Heather Lomax before.
Yeah, dude.
Dude. That's crazy. But the reason I say that is if you notice, I'm hanging out in the malt shop today, and there's a reason I'm in this 50s vibe today.
Because you're just a cheesy individual.
I love the 50s. And, some of the things they used to say back in the 50s were like cool and groovy. Well, groovy was more of 60s.
Groovy 60s, yeah.
60s,
yeah.
Daddy-o.
Daddy-o.
Man was a lot, which people still use today.
Do you think that we continue to use the slang words and of our era? Like when I was in high school, it was not. You would say something like, you're cool, not.
Whatevs.
Yeah, and duh. Remember duh?
Yeah, you still use that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that the teenagers of the 50s are still saying those slang words today and they're however old they are now?
I know a way we can find out because you had a really great interview with someone that she was called what? The queen of the teens or something like that, yeah. I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Miss Kay Wheeler is going to be on the show. We're going to play that interview that Jaime had with her. And we want to talk a little bit about her for those of you that may not be familiar. Kay, I guess, is best known as the first Elvis Presley fan club president. She started the first fan club, right? Right.
And she had no idea when she started this fan club that it would blow up like it did. And and she's a teenager. So just imagine you're a teenager, you're just starting this little fan club for, a person that you like who's singing songs. You had no idea that it was going to blow up and that this musician, Elvis Presley, was going to be who he became.
Yeah. And it even allowed her to not only meet him several occasions, but it kind of opened some other doors. She didn't stop there. She had her own career. What's some of the things she did in her career? I know she danced. She was a singer, right?
She was a dancer. She was in the movie. She was in a lot of the teen movies of that time. Now, I don't know if you had a chance, Johnny, to go on YouTube and see some of the things she did, some of the movies and her dance moves. Now, this was a girl who was, again, a teenager, and the way she danced, Can
you show us some of that? Show me a little bit. Give me an example.
You know what, Johnny? You are really testing me tonight. Where's Dr. Bill when we need him?
Girls in the 60s, did you like in the Elvis movies 50s. And things, 50s even, 50s and 60s. But they did these little jerk thing. I mean,
right.
I can't. It's crazy.
But she was definitely like in rhythm with the music, and she's like using her entire body. And like, I'm watching it and I could like, my neck was like cramping up because I'm just thinking, if I was to do that even now, I mean, I would just like, I would look like I was having a seizure. But she had a way of, you are like, wow, that is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear some more of this interview.
Johnny, as you saw, she's a lovely lady, and I think everyone is going to enjoy listening to her stories.
Our next guest on Life and Laughs in the Jungle Room was once known as the queen of all the teens back in the 1950s. She starred in the iconic rock movie Rock Baby Rocket and Hot Rod Gang with Gene Vincent. She was Elvis Presley's first fan club president. Let's give it up right now. We're going to go to the special interview with Jaime Kay and the wonderful Miss Kay Wheeler.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited about this because I really want to focus on you being a teenager in the 50s. I think we talked about that. And I never realized that your generation was the first teenagers, that was the first time kids of that age were called teenagers. I never dawned on me.
It was also the first rock culture, first
Yes.
rock and roll culture in the world. So we're the original bad guys in some people's view.
No, I love it. I learned so much researching you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are just a legend.
Well, I'm old. I don't know if being a legend means that you've been around 1,000 years, I guess.
No.
Which I wasn't old. I wouldn't have got to have the fun I did. So I didn't miss anything.
You definitely have lived a life in exciting times. I mean, just wow, just everything that you have got to see and experience. Yeah, you blew me away. I'm very impressed by you. And it takes a lot for me to get impressed. I am just in awe of you, to be honest.
Well, even at the time, at age 16, 17, I was thinking, this is a lot of fun that's going on. I'm having a lot of fun. I think I'm going to try to freeze frame this in my mind and keep my attitude and everything I've got just about like it is throughout my whole life. That was just my little secret teenage promise to myself, that I was never going to get really, really like old in my thinking or old in my outlook. Not that there's anything wrong with maturity and all those good things. I'm cashing in on that big time. I love it. But to always have that ideal and a fresh look at things and looking at things not in a jaded way or the way it's always been, so this is the way we do it, was more like, what's new? What can we do new? Where is truth? What's real? What's fun? What's not fun? What do I want to do? And that outlook. And my daughter, Anna, she wrote me a card like about 10 years ago saying, Mom, on Mother's Day, Mom, you've done this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And she listed all these things. And she said, and all the time you were able to remain 16 years old.
Oh my gosh.
He's got it.
Yes.
And so when I read that, I said, I flashed back to 17 years old, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, I wanted to keep this outlook. I wanted to keep that fresh outlook on everything throughout my whole life and never just get bogged down in everything like so many people do, with the past or mistakes or that kind of stuff. So it was when she said that, I thought, wow, okay, that's it. We did it.
And I think it's very important to stay in the present, like mentally and emotionally. I think,
yes,
I know in my experience when I was raising my kids, I was always looking in the future. I can't wait till they're this age or when they're in this part of life.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until now, wow, I lived a lot of my life on fast forward. And I wish someone had took me like 20 years ago and said, stop, like live in the moment, live now, because we are, I think every passing day that we're in the good old days. We just don't know it yet. We don't know we're in the good old days until we're not in it anymore. But
right. Well, I think everything you've done in the past is part of the tapestry of your life. You can't erase it, but it's still there and a presence with you. And you can either maximize it or minimize it, or just be moderate in accepting what happened and try to get the best out of it. And don't forget the fun. Oh my, don't forget the fun. You might forget the heartbreaks here and the times you stubbed your toe, the mistakes you made that, oh God, did I really do that? And you can't dwell on that. You have to just, I think, keep a focus on a positive future. Think about the future, because the future is important and planning is important, but don't be obsessed with it. You're right. Stay into the reality of the moment of the day and don't live in the past and don't live in the future. But like you say, and then on the other hand, they have a part, the past and the present and the future. They all play a role in your overall outlook, I think.
Let's start right there with that philosophy, because you, being a teenager in the 50s, one of the first teenagers to be called that, let's start in the 1950s. What was Kay Wheeler like at that age in the 50s?
That's a really fascinating story, even today. And I think Kay Wheeler is the same Kay Wheeler in 2021. I've tried to hold on to that. Okay. I didn't want to lose a good thing. And I think that, I was like a little bit strong in my outlook at things and independent, fiercely independent. And I just questioned everything about, not everything, but most things about the society in general, that they were just like really, really square. And did I really want to grow up and be like them? And the answer was no way. And of course, we had the movies like Rebel Without a Cause and Marlon Brando and the Wild One, and all that was super cool. And it was totally opposite of going in and sitting at a desk all day long in a business suit, and everybody, just in the suburbs and everything, all ducks in a row and boring plus tax. And so I just thought that doesn't appeal to me. I'm off for something else. I think something more fun, something more excited. I don't think that I was going to fit into the mechanics of their society. So I guess maybe it was a rebel outlook. That's why, in the Marlon Brando show, they ask him, what are you rebelling against? And he said, what do you got?
I love that line.
So I think maybe that was the mantra of the first baby rock culture in the world. And the first teenager says, what are you rebelling against? What do you got? I think we were just unplugged to what our parents had just set up for us, the mold, the mechanics.
Do you think it was with that mindset that the music genre rock and roll really appealed to you?
I don't really think I was thinking that deeply about all of it. All I know is when I heard Hank Ballard and the Midnighters sing in the original Blacks, the Clovers, that's, Little Mama, and, Hank Ballard did I Just Love Your Sexy Ways, and one going, oh, nobody talks like that. This was the first rock and roll. And so, and of course the rock and roll music was unbelievable. It was something we hadn't heard, even though there was the big band era, and there was Sister Rosetta Tharpe and my mother. We had those records. We had some good music. I grew up hearing some good music, the Nat King Cole and some of the greats of that. But when I heard the rock and roll, it was like, oh, let's go. It was like, let's dance. That was the first thought. Let's dance. And my cousin brought it. The rock and roll music of the Black was like, secret underground with the teenagers, because we knew we were doing something that our parents really didn't love, would freak out, and especially in the South, in Texas. Yeah. So this was like secret agent time, did you get the records? Oh, what do you got? Oh, Little Willie John. Oh my God. It was like bring your records over, and whoever had it open place at the house where the parents were going to be gone or something. That was where the scene was. So we were doing underground rock and roll with the black rhythm and blue people before Elvis ever hit the spotlight. Get that right. We were dancing. Mm-hmm. And so, it was just, of course, rock and roll. We'd never heard it before. And, you still hear good rock and roll done today and you love it. You say, wow, that's really something. So back then, suppose you've never heard it before and you start hearing it from the great black rock and rollers. I mean, you're getting the real deal and, bam. It was hit with an impact. Yeah.
And in the 50s, you were a dancer. I watched some of your videos, Miss Kay. Let me tell you, girl, you could move. You can move. I'm like, wow, check her out.
Well, I look at them today and I think, oops, they might be X-rated even today. But at the time when there was no such thing as that, and I didn't know any better, I would just do, like Elvis said, I just do what I feel. And I mean, that was the same kind of thing. I just love the music. Obviously, I love the music, and we were bopping and rocking, doing the parties thing before the Elvis thing even came into being. So we were ready for him. We were like,
right,
the eye of the tiger. We were waiting for Elvis, something like that to show up. And there he was, out of nowhere.
Do you remember the first time you heard Elvis Presley sing?
We were listening. My sister Linda and I. We were looking for black radio stations because that's the only way we could hear rock and roll. Remember, you had a segregated South, especially. We were just spinning the dial one night about 9:00 and we were going to our black radio station. All of a sudden we heard this singer singing Mystery Train, train. And I'm thinking, wow, that's different. Let's listen a minute. So we stopped and we listened to the Mystery Train. And we were going, it was like a bomb had hit us. It was like a saucer had landed in the room. It was like, what and who is that? And all of a sudden, a guy came on and said, this is the Big D Jamboree. And you've just heard Elvis Presley singing Mystery Train. I never knew I was going to get on that Mystery Train and maybe never get off, but at that moment, it was like, wow, but we didn't see him or we didn't know anything about how he performed or what he looked like or anything like that. It was just, wow, this is unbelievable. So we liked it. So about a week later, I was at a record store and I saw a poster on a wall and there was this guy leaning back and he was like, super good looking. And it said Elvis Presley. And it said Mystery Train. I forgot to remember to forget. It was a poster. It was a little poster, like an 8x10 or 8.5 by 11. It wasn't a big one. And I said, is that Elvis Presley? Is that who we heard the other night? Hold everything. And so I got the poster off the wall and I put it in my notebook. I thought, this is mine. I said, Linda, look at this. This was the Elvis Presley. So we put a face to the music that we heard. And
yeah.
What kind of face can you imagine? Oh my goodness. And, just the whole thing. So that was the first time I saw him. I still have the yellow poster to this minute. And that was my first encounter with how Elvis looked. But my first encounter with how Elvis sounded. So that was sold American. I mean, that's it. Done deal.
And so I read, and let me know if this is true or not, and please elaborate. Now, I read that you went to visit your aunt at the radio station where she worked, and you were talking to the DJ at the time about Elvis Presley and how all the girls were just in love with him and he should check it out. Yeah. And you mentioned that there was no fan club at the time. So this DJ announces on the radio that you are the fan club president. And at the time, there was no fan club. And that is kind of how it kind of started you, Kay Wheeler, as the first fan club president of Elvis Presley fan club.
That's close. You're 99% accurate. The conversation is that this jockey came into my aunt's office, who was a lady executive back in the days when lady executives were not lady executives. She was at a top radio station, KLIF in Dallas. And so he came in and said, "You can't believe this record I got." The guy's name, it's the craziest name I've ever heard. Elvis Presley, he's made fun of it,
Mm-hmm.
And I just turned around and said, "Oh, Elvis Presley? Huh, I know who he is." Well, we even have a fan club for him. Of course, I did. My two sisters and myself, at least. And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, he's going to be the biggest thing there is." And this, and so later he came back to my aunt and got my address. And he announced on the radio on his Saturday night show, he played the record, and as a joke, he said, "And if you want to join the Elvis Presley fan club, write Kay Wheeler, 3929 Amherst Street, Dallas, Texas." And he announced it, and this radio station owned a series of stations in Texas. It wasn't just one. They had quite a few stations that went all throughout these smaller towns of Texas. So the following Monday, I happened to play hooky from school. I was home, and my mother.
Oh, you little rebel, you!
Oh, I was terrible. And so my mother comes in and she says the mailman came in. There's stacks of mail on the front porch, and she said they're all addressed to you. I didn't know he did it. Okay, so she brought him in, and we put all the letters out. There were hundreds of them. I said, what is going on? And I finally opened one up, and it said, "Dear Kay, we heard your fan club announced, your Elvis Presley fan club announced on the Bruce Hayes show. Said, we want a member. We would like a picture and a card." A picture and a card, I had that. And so it was an instant fan club. We did have the two sisters and myself, the three. And all of a sudden there were hundreds there. Mm-hmm. Wham. That's how it started. It was almost like an instant thing. We love instant things. This was an instant happening. Wow. And all about this cute guy on the yellow poster. I'm thinking, could this be fate? So there was an address on that yellow poster. It was Bob Neal in Memphis, Tennessee. So I just wrote him, and I said, "These people all want to be in Elvis's fan club." I said, "Please tell me what to do and point me in a direction." The next letter I got about 2 weeks later was from Colonel Tom Parker's office. And the lady said that they had no fan club facilities set up for Elvis because he was just one of their attractions. At that time, Colonel Parker managed Hank Snow, who that was some country and western guy that was a big shot at that. And Elvis was just a little add-on. And he said that you can do whatever the colonel says to tell you to do whatever you want to do about a fan club, but we don't have any facilities. Okay. Whoops, here we go. So, I asked my mother, I said, "What do fan clubs do?" Because I'd never heard of that or anything. She said, "Well, I know sometimes back in the day with Frank Sinatra, sometimes the fan club presidents got to meet the guy." I said, "Oh, this is a done deal. We'll have this fixed. We'll have his fan club in 15 seconds. So, so I designed the fan club card, the pink with, this Presley pink fan club card, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know anything about anything. I'm 16 years old. I'm not a businesswoman or anything like that. And so I go to the printer and get them printed. I got 1,000 for $10. And so I said, "Well, what do we do next?" And I said, "Well, we just answer the letters." And so we all got together. I had people help me, and we sent them out the cards. And that's the way it started. It was just fun. The word for Elvis is fun. And I think that's why we like to remember him, because when he gets up there, he lets his hair down. He goes crazy. He's wearing all the clothes that we wish we could wear. And, he just kind of let himself go. And I think that's that part of him that we all kind of ID with. Let's get out of the rut a minute. Let's just let our hair down for 5 seconds. Let's just not be so political. Let's not be so full of everything else and money seeking. Let us just let our hair down and let's listen to a song. And I think that's a part of the Elvis identification with the generation and the new people that you're talking about, that they are still infatuated with seemingly his freedom on stage. His freedom on stage is something to note. And I think that, it represented a certain amount in all of us that we want to not be restricted too much by everything in our society or what the norms are, what we're expected to do. I don't think it's in our human DNA really to want to be pressed into the mechanics of everything that's around us. I think we want to be able to express our own individuality and freedom. And I think that Elvis represents that, not only to the first generation, which are now all halfway dead, but also to the new ones that are coming into the scene. And it happens all the time. It's still growing, which I think is cute. And I think it's okay to remember the good times. I think it's okay to remember the fun times. And Elvis was a highlight for the first teenagers in America and the continuing of it. He's still a highlight for a lot of people. Yes, they want to criticize you and say, why don't you just let that go? Well, I'm not going to let anything go that was fun, ever.
Right.
Not the popcorn, not the Ferris wheel, not Elvis, not rock and roll, not my baby girl, not my baby boy. I'm not forgetting anything that was great for me. So eat your heart out, Squares.
I love that. Let's get back to you talking about Elvis. He was a rebel in a lot of ways, and not everyone liked Elvis. Not everybody was an Elvis fan, which is important because it did not sway Elvis to be anything other than Elvis Presley on stage. It did not sway him from being the performer that has created this icon today. And I want to talk a little bit about that because you're part of that generation where you stood against the stereotype of what young people should act like at that time.
True. And that's part of his attraction, that he didn't change his routine or his stage presence just because everybody was attacking him. And the adult community was really not that crazy about Elvis. Most parents, especially in the South, they didn't want their kids dancing to that black rock and roll music, and who is this Elvis? Oops, you're all under arrest, And so there was a real schism between the teachers and the adults and the parents and what the kids wanted to do. And we were just wanting to have fun, and we were just wanting to dance to rock around the clock. And we just didn't want to be like them, for sure. And so, yeah, there was a lot of persecution about it. At school, the teachers, one guy at school grabbed my Elvis pictures and ripped them to shreds, grabbed them out of my hand forcefully. They were personally autographed. It was almost like a violent attack, somebody just grabbing your purse and throwing everything on the ground, and he just ripped it to pieces in front of my face. And so that was the kind of an anger thing. And the Elvis thing for guys was not real big. Some of the guys that were really nice looking and didn't feel that threatened by Elvis, they liked him. But the rank and file, it wasn't a guy thing. Elvis was a girl thing. And now I think more guys are getting into it, into Elvis impersonators and all that. I think I'm good with that. I'm kind of good with anything Elvis is okay. If you want to get up there and put on black leather dance, go for it. It's like, hey, I wish both of my husbands had wanted to be more like Elvis. I'd still be married,
Oh, me too, girl. Me too.
As much like Elvis as you really want to, go for it.
Yeah. Another thing we have in common.
Yeah, don't hold back.
So being that already the age that you are in the 50s, you guys, your group, your generation, you're fighting back. You're staying true to yourself. And one of those things is not only being a fan of Elvis Presley, but you're the fan club president. So can you talk to us a little bit about the first time you met Elvis Presley?
The first time was I got a letter from the Colonel Parker's office. And I guess because they had no fan club presidents or anything set up or organized, I was like, okay, I was favored in kind of a way because I was something they didn't have at the time. And so they sent me a letter and said, Elvis is coming to San Antonio. Of course, that was like over 180 miles away from my house. And they acted like it was just right across the street, And if you would like, the Colonel said, if you want to meet Elvis, Colonel will make arrangements for you two. And so I said, I'll find a way. And so I had grown up in grammar school in San Antonio, Texas. That was where I was going to be, San Antonio. And so I had a really good friend that I grew up in grammar school with, and her family that I was like my parents. They were like, we were real close. And I thought her name was Tina. And I thought I could stay with Tina. Mother will let me go. I could get a Greyhound bus and I could go down there. That was my plan. And so I wrote back to the office, says, yes. I said, oh, yes, I would like to do that. And so she said, well, you will be receiving a telegram from Colonel Tom Parker authorizing you to get backstage in San Antonio. And back then, telegrams, that was like, we don't really have them now, but it was like an authorized thing, with Parker from Parker's office. So I got this telegram and I was just, wow, let's get that suitcase packed. Let's get on the road. And so I went down to San Antonio, Texas, and I walked up there was a huge crowd there. It was April 15th, 1956. And I walked up to the backstage door and knocked on it, and a guy opened it up, and I said, I have this telegram from Colonel Parker. It was like, open no sesame, it's like, open the door. And he looks at it, he said, oh, come right on in. I mean, that worked. And so I went on in, and he took me to an area where there was the dressing rooms. He said, Elvis is in there, just go in. I'm thinking, oh, I just go in. I can barely breathe right now. If I walk in that door and Elvis Presley's there, I'm going to faint. So finally I got my nerve up. I had a lot of nerve, baby. And I opened the door, and there he was. He's sitting in front of a mirror, and he was like doing his DuckTales. And he sees me in the mirror, and he spins around, and he turns around, and he walks up to me as close as he can get. And I say, I'm your fan club president. I'm like, stop. I'm your fan club president. I'm Kay Wheeler. I'm your fan club president. He says, oh, tell me what you want me to do. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Whoa.
You have
blushing right now.
You have 10 years for me to spell it all out. No. And so I said, sign this. And so I just got a few autographs and everything. So all of a sudden with just the two of us, so he starts, coming up to me, he said, is that all you? And he, goes down the sides of the outfit I've got on. I said, yes. And so he starts holding me and kissing around on me. And, we're just having a little time there. And it's just the two of us. Okay. This was much better than I expected.
Yeah.
I was liking every minute. You've seen some of these pictures. I think some of them are behind me somewhere. I'm not
okay.
Sure. Anyway, so we just had a really nice little time together. And so then some photographers came in, and he kept it going on, from, more people came in the room and so forth, and they were taking pictures. And so, that was it. And that was exciting. And I was on stage with him on the wings when he was doing his concert there in San Antonio. And I got some great pictures, but I also was doing the bop. I was doing my thing when he was singing. So when they had a break, I was dancing. They all turned around and looked at me. Somebody got a picture of it, or I got a picture of it. But I was doing the bop. And so after he came off stage, he said, what was that you were doing? I said, well, that's the bop. And he said, okay, well, let's do some of this. So we did a little bit of dancing there backstage together, just some heel toe, some of the bop stuff. And Scotty Moore, who plays the guitar, he played some music a little bit. So we had a little private time. And then he was going to do another show later. So but he couldn't get out because there was 3,000 people outside at the auditorium. And so he said, well, let's go play some music. So he found an organ. It was backstage. And it was real quiet. And he sat down and played some private songs. That was my first thing. And do you need anything else? Not really.
Wow. No, that was awesome. I didn't know all of that.
I'm good with that.
Well, we're going to get back to Elvis here in a little bit, but I want to talk to you about your dancing and your movie career, because you starred in a movie, Rock Baby Rocket. Was that the name of it? Right. And I saw some little clips of that. And again, girl, you and your moves. I'm just saying. It was blown away. How did that come about?
It came about with Hank Ballard and the Midnighters in the underground rock and roll movement of the 50s that I referenced earlier. We had those dance parties. I called them bop parties. And we were always doing the bop, and doing that. And I just got into it deeper and deeper and more like, let's really do what we feel here, what I'm feeling. I'm not going to worry about how I look or anything like that. Just dance like nobody's watching, like we say today. And I just really got into the music and just, let myself go to it. And in the movie Rock Baby Rocket, I didn't get to choose my music, even though it was okay, but it wasn't the rock and roll that I would normally be dancing to. But I was just going along with it. I was just trying to be a good sport. It wasn't exactly my rock and roll. I would like to take that dance and put it to Elvis singing Blue Suede Shoes or something. Then you can see more, It was hard for me to get in the mood, let's put it that way. But I did the best I could. But thank you for that. And I still dance around myself when I do, instead of exercising, I do dancing. I've always liked it, music, and stayed active. Maybe it's helped me over the years.
You mentioned something just a minute ago that struck me. You said that you would just get into the music. You didn't care about how you looked. You were really into having fun and feeling the moment and feeling the music. And that is a very good point to share with a lot of our viewers and listeners, especially our younger generation coming up, because sometimes, especially with what we have today with social media and this image that a lot of girls feel like they have to meet up to be considered pretty or popular. And you in your life rebelled against that, not caring what this image that is stereotypical for each generation. And you concentrated on what's going to make you happy and successful. Can we talk a little bit more about that?
I think you hit on to something. I wasn't really trying to impress anybody. I never had that in my mind. I was just having fun. And if you want to come along, okay. I mean, anybody wants to come along with it and get into the groove with it, that's fine with me. And the Elvis thing, yeah, I liked Elvis. I liked the rock and roll music. I liked what it represented. And of course, he was, the worst thing about Elvis is he was just too cute. That made him public domain. That means that nobody's going to ever have this guy. He's going to be everybody's guy. And so you better think about something else to do if you have that thought. But I think you're right. I was following my own path at the time. Yes.
And in a lot of ways, you and Elvis had that in common, because both of you were staying true to yourself in a lot of ways. And that has to have led to a lot of your success, personally, yours and Elvis's.
Marion Keister at Sun Records said, well, who do you sound like? He said, I don't sound like nobody. Double negative. Yeah. I don't sound like nobody. And I think that he was not trying to be somebody else. I think he loved the rock and roll music and he loved the black rock and roll, and he incorporated that into his own. He made That's All Right, Mama his own, even though it was original black singer that did it and wrote the song. It wasn't Elvis, but whenever he put his touch on it, he made it his own. He had his own individual. You would be like you'd never heard the song before, if you played the two records side by side. I think that individuality and uniqueness that he allowed himself to express is something that we all need in our society. When everybody's trying to press you into their cookie cutter, don't go there. Don't let them. I mean, I think you need to be who you are, and because otherwise you're just going to be suppressed. maybe even depressed on top of it. And it's hard to please everybody. You're not going to please them no matter what you do. And so you just kind of throw out your best and be true to yourself and follow your path and have your own answer to yourself about what you do and what you don't do. And I think, identify with Elvis and that. I think that we kind of feel bad about when he got into the movies. Some of those movies, the Jailhouse Rock, the King Creole, the Love Me Tenderly was good, but some of the other movies became cookie cutter, and he was just mostly kind of doing what they said, rock a hula, get up there, put that on, sing that, sing this song. He wasn't picking the songs. They were picking a soundtrack to sell with the movie, whether or not they were, and he kind of made a departure from rock and roll, which caught him a lot of criticism from rock people, the 70s rockers and people, Elvis, he's doing Las Vegas, he's doing all these funky movies, he did these funky movies, he's gained weight, he's not the true rebel. But I think Elvis was always the true rebel. And I think his compromising and trying to make Parker happy and do what this one said and that one said, and, for the guaranteed millions he's going to make a movie, I think it compromised his individuality and probably how he felt in his own mind about himself. And that left him with regrets. And when you get too many regrets and you're sitting around thinking about it, that's not a good place to be. And I think that some of the latter part of his life, he talked about the movie. He didn't like some of those movies and he wanted to be a more serious actor. And, but he got caught up in the fact that the lifestyle that he had and the people that were on his payroll and his obligations, he became like a company, and he had to go out there and do his thing like the dancing bear, the circus. He had to get out there and make the money, and he's had all these people on his payroll. I have these guys,
right,
families. So he got into that routine in the latter years of his life, and I think that was sad. That was sad. That was sad.
I think it is forgotten that Elvis was responsible for a lot of people's livelihood. And that has to put a whole different type of pressure when you yourself is the sole responsible person for families that are depending on that income to support their families, feed their kids.
And then think about that he had to go out there no matter how he felt. And, some of those latter concerts, you see him kind of look up at the ceiling and kind of look down. And he's thinking, God, get me through this one more time. You can almost feel that prayer in him, that he was just coming in on a wing and a prayer on some of those last concerts, especially that last one that was televised, that film with the white suit on. But he's saying how great thou art, and just it's almost like a heavenly voice. I mean, you couldn't keep your tear out of your eyes listening to him, because it was like with his last breath, almost close to it. It was months away. The death was months away.
Right.
So I think that, he had a lot of conflicted thinking about what he had done in the past, what he had allowed Parker to push him into, what happened with his mother, his personal life, and the value system, of course, that he was raised, in a Assembly of God church, and Tupelo, that was all they really had, was that church. They were very, very poor beyond anything you and I could ever think of. And I think that was their comfort, and that was their zone of faith and freedom and hope. And I think Elvis had that throughout his life. And I think that's why he always got up and had almost every concert. He'd put a how great thou art and glory, hallelujah. And he loved the gospel music. It was kind of his way of paying back maybe the comfort that it gave his family, his mother and him growing up. But you can't get away with that. When you bring a child up with that kind of hope and faith, it's always imprinted. It's an imprint. And I think always Elvis had that imprint. And like a lot of us, he didn't always walk the perfect walk, but I think he tried to talk the perfect talk. But having said that, I think that at the end of his life, he was probably finding more faith and grace to go on with what he was going on. And I think that helped him through the ladder to the end, to the very end.
When was the last time you saw Elvis alive?
The last time I saw Elvis alive in person was in Hollywood, November of 1957. It was at the press premiere, not the premiere of Jailhouse Rock. It was just the press. I don't know whether he saw the movie, but Colonel made him go to the press conference. Mm-hmm. And I was there with Judy Spreckles, and I wasn't expected to be there. She had an invite for two. So she said, Judy Spreckles was a friend of Elvis's. I don't know if you've ever gone back and said that. And she was a friend of mine in Hollywood. I was out in Hollywood making Hot Rod Gang with Gene Vincent. And so Judy Spreckles looked me up, and she was like super nice. And, you know, and I kind of had lost a lot of my connection with Parker. And so I didn't have an invite to the press conference, but she had two. So she said, come with me. I said, okay. And so we went, and we were sitting there. And so everybody's waiting for Elvis to walk in. And he walks in the room. He looks the room up and down. Everybody's waiting for him to say something. He screams across the room, is that you, Kay? I mean, it's me, Elvis. That, you know, everybody turns around and looking at me. I'm thinking, hi. But he immediately couldn't figure out what in the world I was doing out there in Hollywood. It's probably what he was thinking. Because the last time I had walked out of his hotel room in Shreveport, Louisiana, at the Louisiana Hayride, and that's the last time we met in 1956, in December 15th, 1956. And so the next time he sees me is November of 1957. And there I'm in Hollywood sitting at his press conference. And he's thinking, is that Kay? But at least he remembered me.
Right.
And so, you know, that was the last words. He was just a recognition by him. I guess, who needs anything else? That was good. That was good. We're good with that.
So did you follow Elvis's career through the 60s and the 70s?
Yes. I mean, you know, I loved the 1968 special, you know, when he sings Trying to Get to You in that black leather outfit. I go, oh, I mean, that's my favorite Elvis performance. Okay. Because when he said, and then also when he does that, baby, tell me what you want me to do, always flashback.
Oh, I love that song. Oh my gosh. It's something about the way he sings it. And it's like, yes. Big fan.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I never was, well, I guess probably early on you could call me an obsessive Elvis fan. But as I got older, you know, I had my own life. I had things going on and my kids. And so I'm not an obsessive. I don't consider myself continually obsessive, which I guess is all right. And so, but I've always favored him and I've always loved his music. That's never gone away. So yeah, I kept a following of it. Yeah. And I also love all kinds of music. I like all kinds of music. I'm a music person, even throughout all the time.
So can you tell us where you were the day that you heard the news that Elvis had died?
I had set up a nonprofit organization in the 70s that kind of dealt with the hippies and the love peace people that were doing rock and roll. And I never told them I knew Elvis or anything. So I was at my outreach center there in Houston, where I'd set up and I had quite a thing going on there. And somebody came out, and I was like in the front yard or something, and somebody came out and rushed and screamed, Elvis is dead. And the first thing that hit me was, it's all over. I mean, we're all going to die. All of a sudden, I think my own mortality was the main thing that kind of hit me. If the king is dead, the court is on the way. You know, it was like, yeah, he's gone, so we're going. It was like a kind of an awesome moment. It was a real sad moment, but it was also a moment of, golly, if Elvis can die, anybody can die. You know, you just didn't think about that, you know, that he was bigger than life and he wasn't that old.
Miss Wheeler, I want to ask you, being that you have lived through so many different historical moments in our American history, And being that you are someone that beats to the sound of her own drum, do you have any advice for the young people today and how they, as they are entering adulthood, do you have any advice to them as they go out and make it into the world?
My advice is the thing has been the main thing in my life. It's kept me to focus and changed me a lot. So when I came back from Hollywood and I was only 19, it was like I had seen the whole fame and fortune of Elvis. He did seem that happy the last time I saw him. And I was thinking about, what am I going to do? Am I just rock and roll hoochie coo, or who am I? So I decided to enroll in college and try to find out, what's my focus? What's my path? I've done that. I mean, I've been there, I've done that, and it didn't seem that satisfying. And it didn't seem like anything that was going to hold my attention, really. And I got into the real depth of what life is all about. And in part of my studies, I wanted to be a speechwriter. I studied law, but in journalism. And I got interested. I was going to use a Bible quote for a speech because Kennedy was going to deliver it the day he died. There was a Bible quote at the end of the speech, and he never got to give. So I thought, well, I want to learn some quotes. I'm going to get some good quotes out in case I'm from the speeches. I was doing a little local speech writing there in Dallas for the Democratic Party. And so I started reading a couple, and I was disturbed about, the very, very poor and the very rich and how the kids suffered and so forth. That was kind of being awakened to some of the injustices in our society. And when I read that Jesus said, if you've got two coats, share one with somebody that doesn't. If somebody's hungry, feed them. And I thought, this guy is not talking what I'm hearing in our world today, which is just seek your own, satisfy yourself, get as much money as you can get, and you'll be happy forever and ever because you have the most toys when you die. And I thought that was shallow Hal, big time. And that's what I perceived that at 19, 20 years old. Okay. And so I said, and then I read in Solomon, it said, he was the big king of the day. I had big houses, I had servants, I had everything. And behold, it was like vanity and vexation of spirit. And there's nothing new on the earth. I said, nailed, that guy's got it. But he's not talking like everybody else around the world. And so I got impressed with that. And I think that we all kind of see that in our innermost person, that the self-indulgent, self-seeking, wealth-seeking is not really that fulfilling at the end of the day, and that we need to get a focus and a faith in our own heart. And that's my testimony right there. That's the secret of my strength. Eat your heart out.
Love that interview. Kay Wheeler, what an awesome life she's lived.
Right. And it still just blows me away that she is part of the first generation of the term teenagers. Yeah. And rock and roll. Like, that is history right there. It's so amazing.
Hey, not only that, she's also written several books, which we didn't really get a chance to talk to her in depth about. Maybe we'll have to have her back on and do that again. But if you want more information about Kay Wheeler, you can find her on Facebook just by searching Kay Wheeler. Also, you can get her directly. If you want to send her an email, it is kwheel@aol.com. I encourage you to let her know you heard this podcast, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to like this at the bottom of your screen, share it, subscribe to the Jungle Room Podcast. And Jamie, what's that website?
JungleRoomPodcast.com.
You can check out all the shows, including last week's show with Priscilla Presley. But that interview, Jamie, you did a great job. Kay Wheeler, awesome. Loved it.
Thank you so much. And you know what else is awesome is I got to visit the TCB cast. I actually got to guest co-host to fill in for Justin on this week's episode. And Gurdeep and I discussed our top 5 Elvis Presley songs.
Gurderp.
It's Gurdeep.
Gurderp.
You know what, Johnny?
I like to call him Gurderp. I like the name Gurderp. They should have named him Gurderp. That would have been awesome. Johnny?
This is why you do not have a lot of friends. This is why. And when we have Dr. Bill back on, we're going to discuss this. You are What happened to you? Seriously, what? Why do you act like that?
I was fine right up until I met you. I think that's when things changed.
Really?
I'm sorry, Gerderp. Great show, man. Great show.
Oh man, I have talked to Dr. Bill about this. We need to talk about your problem with being on time for these shows. You're always late. I just want to know what it is you're doing to be so late. Is it your hair? Is it your makeup? Because if it's your hair, honey, there's a
I can't control when my limo driver gets me here. I can't control. It's not. I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
My personal pilot, flights. Sometimes planes get here late.
Fiction can be fun.
Hey, I went back in time. I'm in the 50s right now. You got to give me a little extra time to get back to your world.
Okay. You're not a part of my world. My world is about being on time.
JungleRoomPodcast.com. Be sure to like us and share this video with all your friends on your social media and add us on social media as well. Instagram, Facebook. You can find all of that at
JungleRoomPodcast.com.
There you go. We'll see you next week, guys.
Well, you'll see one of us. Probably not Johnny.
We'll see.
It is JungleRoomPodcast.com, and you can listen to our sorry. I have to pee.
I'm putting that in the show. I wish we had a light directly on your face, though. Is the only thing that was brighter. I mean,
I am a bright light.
You're lit up, but it's like
I'm lit.
All right, are you ready?
Yes, John.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Oh wait, hold on. Okay. Oh wait, I need to fix it. Okay, there. Great. No, I'm serious, and I know you're not really frozen, Johnny, because I just saw you blink.
Dang it.